Hello everyone, and welcome to the first of what will be many Tekken videos that will be coming to the channel. Originally, I didn't really plan on bringing back this series to the channel so soon, but with how goddamn good Tekken 8 has been looking, I simply can't lie, I'm pumped. Like, there is no way in God's green earth that I didn't want to talk about this game. It's just so cool. Sorry, I've been wanting to get that out my system for a while, but with EVO Japan finally over, as well as Bandai Namco having revealed 2 more characters, I wanted to talk about my personal feelings on it, and my expectations for Tekken 8. Because there's a lot I want to touch on, especially after the bar Tekken 7 has set. Also, I know it's been in early access for a handful of creators. Unfortunately, I haven't been one of them, but I think there's quite enough gameplay and information out there for us to have a rough idea of what to expect from both a gameplay and story aspect, as that is one of the big things coming into this installment, as it is a battle of fates. Also, worth pointing out, this is just more fighting game content for the channel, thus it won't be taking away from other series, like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat on the channel, in case some of you were wondering. And the redone History of Tekken series will be returning as of July this year. So if you're into Tekken, then this is most certainly the place that you want to be. But before we do kick things off, as always, if you like the new content and wish to support it, please give this video a thumbs up, and please don't forget to subscribe and tick that bell, as it is the best way to stay up to date with all things Tekken related here. Anywho, let's jump right into things, and first and foremost, talk about how the game looks. And dear Christ, are they really putting Unreal 5 to the works here? Tekken 8, in comparison to Tekken 7, looks fucking immaculate, because Tekken 8 looks so damn good. Now you can see the pores in people's skin, the veins under their skin, and muscular definition, while still kind of retaining its hyper fantasy anime aspects. Whilst there's still definitely an element of realism, Tekken still knows that this is a series where I can pit a raptor against the bear, a devil man against an Aztec god from space. It still sticks to the core roots of how absolutely absurd its premise is, and retain that hyper fantasy aspect, while still looking great in its modern day interpretation. Something a lot of realistic games lose in favor of graphical fidelity, so this is most certainly something I'm glad to see the series has retained. I hold Mortal Kombat 11 visually in extremely high esteem, but Tekken 8 and Street Fighter 6 have most certainly raised that bar. So from a visual standpoint, as of right now, I think Tekken 8 is hitting that bar perfectly. In terms of characters' visual appearance and redesign, I'm really liking a lot of the new designs for characters, especially Kazuya's and Nina's. They are both really good. In terms of music, we haven't heard very much yet. However, the music they featured in trailers is just fantastic. So I honest to God can't wait for us to hear what the rest of Tekken 8 soundtrack sounds like. Because if there's something that is consistent, especially when it comes to Tekken, it's that its music is always on point. Now moving on to the meat and potatoes of the game itself, the gameplay. And man, does this game look great in motion. In terms of what we have seen previously, Tekken 8, more or less, seems like a refreshing yet familiar take on something we are all familiar with the incorporation of the heat system being the new mechanic of this game. Now, as a huge fan of Soul Calibur 6, heat inherently does actually remind me of Soul Calibur's Soul Charge, gaining a temporary buff state with access to new moves for a small duration of time, encouraging far more aggressive play. One of my favorite aspects about this mechanic in particular is the individuality it brings to each different character. something which has historically plagued Tekken because of its inherent nature to have somewhat clone characters. So I like that Heat makes each character feel very special in their own way, even if there are somewhat clone characters that do return in the future. I'm also a really big fan of the far more up-in-your-face, aggressive approach to combat. Whilst I most certainly enjoyed Tekken 7's formula of a footsie-based spaced fighter, I do feel in many ways that Tekken 7 essentially took that formula as far as they could with it, because it did take quite a few games before Tekken 7 perfected that formula, with them adding new mechanics later down the line, but it does seem they've kind of abandoned for Tekken 8. So in a way, I am glad they are trying something a bit new. I'm also hoping for this installment that Bandai Namco implements good rollback. I don't know if Tekken 7 is still running on delay-based netcode, or it's running on rollback, but I still have a lot of connection issues when it comes to joining people on the West Coast. Now, in terms of roster, Tekken 8 has a really strong one, having a bunch of great, and I mean damn strong returning legacy characters, as well as the return of Leroy, and of course, the long-awaited return of Jun Kazama. This has been a really strong start for the roster so far. But right now, I think Tekken 8 definitely could do with revealing a few new characters. Because as Tekken evolves, introducing newer characters really is a great way of fleshing out the world, especially in its current state, where the Mishima Zaibatsu has fallen and G Corporation is attacking in full force. Personally, I don't really have any character requests in mind. I got King, and he looks like an absolute machine. But I maybe would like to see the return of characters like Ana, Armor King, Lee, and Yoshimitsu. But we're just gonna have to see if they make the cut on release. Now moving on to story. Tekken's always had a pretty weird and wacky story, with gods, dragons, and demons being amongst them, but that's always been part of the inherent charm of Tekken. It's wacky, it's wild, and it knows it. That's why it's always quite fun, even with its darker tone from 6 onwards. But now with Tekken, moving away from its traditional arcade style of telling its main narrative, we are now in a state and era where we can tell these stories through cinematics. And after many years and installments, I am just glad that we are finally climbing to the end of the Mishima and Kazuma saga. Something that has long overdue needed a real and proper climax. And they have set up this story really well with the death of Heihachi Mishima. I also really do like that this has been seen as a way to tie Jun back into the narrative loop of Tekken's main story, as her absence has most certainly been felt. I do want to see just how all of this ties with both Jin and Kazuya. Plus, with this being the end of this story, it would be really good for us to finally learn a bit more about the Devil Gene and how the Kazuma bloodline is tied to it. Now, outside of the Mishima and Kazuma bloodline, I want to see how G Corporation's attack has affected the other characters on the roster. So with that said, Harada, please bring back traditional arcade modes with an intro and an outro, because I just wasn't a fan of Tekken 7's book chapter system, where it was a one-fight scenario with a cutscene that sometimes had absolutely no relevance to their previous story. So with the stakes at hand, this would be a really good way to tie up a lot of loose threads. It kind of shows the ripple effect G Corporation has had on the rest of the world. Outside of this, I'm really looking forward to 8's story, because I enjoyed the engaging aspects of 7 that tied cutscene to gameplay. That was a lot of fun. It's just unfortunate that 7's story in itself was told probably in the worst way possible. Now, one thing I did want to touch on, and they're doing a phenomenal job of this, is interpersonal character relationships. I like how there is specific dialogue between characters before a fight starts. It's such a small thing, but adds so much interactivity and personality between each different character. It's honestly what Tekken has been lacking for a really long time now. Outside of what I've mentioned here, I would like to see Tekken 8 bring back a few additional game modes outside of just gameplay itself, because Tekken 7 in many aspects was a step back. This is more on the casual side of things, but it still would be nice for it to be part of the overall package. First and foremost, I would like to see the return of Ghost Mode. Is it necessary? Not exactly, but it gives us something to do outside of play someone who might have terrible internet connection. Plus, it serves as a fun way to unlock in-game cosmetics. And I also don't want to see the return of the weird, quirky, double damage, hit air and combo game modes. Those weren't particularly too fun. A fun returning mode that would most certainly be a pleasure to see would be like a Tekken Force game mode. I like how it was implemented into 6's scenario campaign. It's just an additional mode to earn extra currencies and expand Tekken beyond just its fighting game mechanics. More of a casual thing for sure, but it is just a bit of fun to bring in players that don't just want the fighting game aspect. Plus, it's a great thing to have to accompany the cinematic narrative. And since we're talking about cosmetics, I think something that Tekken 8 definitely needs to step up, as I find 7's a step backwards, is character customization. Because a lot of really cool designs that had existed in previous Tekkens were not brought across to 7. So please, 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 bring them into Tekken 8. Tekken 8 is looking stellar, even in its current place, where we do not have a release date. But rest assured that this will most certainly be one of the best games on the fighting market when it does drop. There is so much promise here, and so much potential with the inherent legacy that Tekken has had ever since its first installment. And with it being the final end to the Mishima bloodline, I cannot wait to see how this story unfolds, and how the Tekken formula and series evolves from what we have previously seen, especially with the rest of the characters that will be coming our way over the next few months. So Tekken 8 right now, looking phenomenal. With that said, everyone, what are your current thoughts on Tekken 8? Are you excited about this next installment in the series? And who will you be playing on release? Or who are you currently waiting for? Please do comments down below, as I'd love to hear what you have to say. And remember, there will be plenty more Tekken content coming your way once more characters drop, and my History of series does return in July. At least for Tekken. Anyway guys, as always, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting as we all get ready for the next battle. Take care everyone, I'll see you all soon.